Scano, Sego, and Ni, good afternoon. It's great to see everyone. It's a beautiful day where we are. Sun is shining and it's spring is in the air, and we're really grateful to have this day and time set aside to visit with our friend Elder Allen Sutherland. You don't look like an elder, but we're just gonna appreciate that means so much more, and I'm sure we'll get into that conversation a little bit later. Nice to see you, Alan, on the Grandmother's Voice platform. For those of you who are joining us today, right now, maybe a little bit later, we welcome you and are grateful that you continue to show up and support our community and Indigenous voices and those who are willing to share their gifts with us, especially in this time as we're continuing on our journey of healing together and understanding who we are as a people and what our purpose is in this world today. So just really grateful for this time and opportunity, and acknowledging that this time that we get to spend together from across the lands. I'm coming to you from Oakville, Ontario. We have many treaties here, and we're on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and so many other nations and ancestors walked along these lands and took care of these beautiful lands and created opportunities and landmarks to remind us that they were here long before we were. So I'd like to acknowledge those that came before us and have created those opportunities around us to really wake us up for this time that we're living in right now. And so again, Nyawa, for visiting today, and nice to see you, Alan. It's been really great to get to know you, and it's wonderful that we get to give this platform and this opportunity for you to share your voice across our nation, because we know that people are watching and people are looking. They're ready. People are ready. We hear that a lot. They're hungry. That's the word I heard today. Someone said it in our meeting. They're hungry. So, Nyawa, for coming and being here with us.
Well, thank you, Jody, for inviting me to this beautiful space. We call the airwaves, I guess, but it's not really air. It's just it's space itself. Anyway, I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll start our conversation. Wabski menes is it Mr. Temnis Nakaz, the Juni Dudam, Mishkun Henning Dunji, Treaty 2 Territory, Nishnave Sotunin. I'm White Spotted Horse of the Lynx Clan. I'm from Skowhenan First Nation and Treaty 2 Territory, and I'm Anishinaabe. My common name is Allen Sutherland, and I'll start off by saying you call me an elder. I struggle with that honorable title because of my human ego. I consider myself very young, and we're kind of hesitant for anybody to use the word elder, because they pop up all over the place, and sometimes they cause trouble. And I'm reminded of the teachings that I have of the sacred circle, and there is a time when you are honored by the whole community because of your life experience, and they're called the Healing Council. Elder is an English term, but Mishumis Nukumis Healing Council was the one that looks after each other, and they're basically relied on for their wisdom and knowledge. The term that came around in the last 5 years is a knowledge keeper, for those that specialize in a certain background, gifts, teachings, and so forth. And that was a term that I've been using for a long time, until recently, last fall, through a ceremony when an ancient one had a couple of questions. And basically, do you have grandchildren? And of course I said, yes, I do. Then you're an elder. So you can't argue with an ancient past, an ancestor. So I I have accepted the term being called an elder. So it's a matter of both, knowledge keeper or elder, and and I'm glad to be here because we said let's have conversations, unscripted, and I'll follow the lead. I'll follow you, Jody. Where will we go from here?
Yeah, it's funny because it's reminding me of, well, the couple of times that we've talked, and it's just like meant to be a short conversation, and then 2.5 hours later, we're like, "Wow, it's too bad we didn't have this on recording," because they're, the conversations, like you said, are candid and real and important, and one of my other elders, Mike Dockstader, one time said, we were having great conversation in the background, and he's like, "We have to stop because then if we say it once, we forget to talk about it again. So we'll have to remember that for next time." But sometimes I forget to introduce myself because I've been doing this platform now for since COVID, since 2020, maybe even 2019. We started some lives. We did some really great experiential learning over COVID, when we all became more familiar with this virtual space. And, I remember the day that the grandma said, "We need to reach the people. How do we do that?" And I was like, I think it's by Facebook. And so, I was never really afraid to say, "Hey," because I don't look at myself when I speak. I know you had mentioned the other day about putting up some markers so that you don't look around, or, you're looking right at the people. Eyeballs or something, you said? Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't do that. I probably should. You're on mute. So we can't hear
So
you.
I just showed that I just have these
Oh,
two
yeah.
eyes by the camera. So once in a while, I'm looking at the audience.
Hmm. It's funny because when I started to do this, and I was getting into my introduction about grandmother's voice and who I am, I do forget that sometimes to introduce myself, because I do get excited about who's in the room with me and who's showing up to share, to share with us. And so I think it's a bad habit that I have, where I don't begin with, introducing myself as, Jody Harbor, and my great grandmother was of the Cayuga Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. And I've always known I was Indigenous. I grew up with a very proud father who was plagued by a lot of societal issues and matters that took his life at a very young age. And my passion has always I've always had this passion for advocacy, for people, for wellness, for love. And through my journey, the last 12 years, I've really been able to step into being my true self in any situation, and just being able to speak in for my ancestors who never had an opportunity, or society didn't have a space or place for them. And lately, I have stepped back from putting myself out on this platform. If for those of you who have been following Grandmother's Voice, we have, Cedar Sisters, and we had some drumming, and we have the grandmas come on and do the Mayan ceremony, and other lives that we did. And there's been some mixed emotions around that these days, because of the work that we do is becoming quite elevated. And it is challenging work. And I say challenging because there's a lot of realities that come with putting yourself out there. And like, you were saying, Alan, about even just terminology, like being an elder, and, just knowing that I've never felt like ever needed a title other than who I am as Jody. And when I learned that my responsibility is to acknowledge my grandmother and my father, my ancestors, and that I walk and do this work because I've been guided by them, like very strong, and I've moved with that energy and trust that energy, and it really changed my life. And so for the last even 5 years since COVID, where I was thrusted, I felt like into, okay, we need to heal people. And you're receiving all of this amazing energy from elders, knowledge keepers, grandmas, my community members, my life experiences. And I want to share this with everyone. And this platform and this space gives us that opportunity to drop it here, to put it here. And then it sits in YouTube and Facebook, and we get to revisit it when we need to. And yeah, I'm really happy and honored. I sometimes think, like, why me? Why do I get to be in this, in these amazing relationships with people like you, Alan, who have so much knowledge to share, that we're like, from the first time I called you, you were so gracious with your time and knowledge. And I'm really honored that we've created this opportunity together, and we get to show people how to do it. I don't know. It just, this is what you do. You just call people up and let's talk. So, tell us, like, you were just with us in Halton. I brought you, like, I invited you into our community. Amazing, amazing, amazing. We were so moved. I spoke with a few people, and I know I was moved. I actually ended up speaking with you again later that night because I felt I was so, I don't want to say triggered. I was moving through healing. That's what I really sat with that night, and real, understanding and the realities. We saw history. You brought us through history. And if we can just, because I don't think, well, we haven't really shared here, what compelled you to do that work.
Yeah, we did spend a day last Friday, and the first half of it was on the Canadian Indigenous Canadian, the historical timeline. And I did have a chance to go over it once as a linear from the time of Columbus to what's going on around us to this day. And then had a little bit of time. We were running out of time, but I was explaining on how to use that as a tool. And the most important thing that I said is that you tell your story. Don't tell it the way I told it. Like I had since its creation in 2008, I had a lot of opportunities to fine tune this. So I'm able to tell the history quite in depth. If I'm talking to doctors, I'll talk about medicines and healing. If I'm talking to lawyers, I'll talk about treaties and the Indian Act and Supreme Court cases. Now, if talking to everyday people, and the tool was made for my own Indigenous peoples in our communities to explain what happened to us. Because there was a time that you couldn't go for higher learning. You were basically in residential schools limited to grade 4, if you're lucky, grade 6. But grade 4 was the average grade because half of the time you're working in the fields, or the girls were working, in the residence itself. Then when they opened it up in 1951, not everybody was rushing to the university, and they were slowly going into the cities. Now they offer Native studies. Before, it was anthropologists offering it to each other, but in the 70s they were starting to offer that. So when parents or grandparents send off their young adult children to go to university, they basically told them, come back and tell us what's the Indian Act is about, because they grew up with it. Why did we have Indian residential schools? Because they do know what treaties mean to them. That oral tradition was alive and still active in terms of what was promised to each other between the Crown and our nations. So we had an opportunity to cover that history for a little bit. And in the afternoon, I have to back it up by an origin story, but basically saying what it is to be a human being. And the gifts of being a human being is to have that human experience and to have the Creator to be part of it inside of us. So all the galaxies and all the universe, and you see in this in the heavens, is not necessarily out there. We don't in our ceremonies we don't teach a hierarchy. We teach about going inside, and that's where spirit is. That's where you interact with each other. It's with your heart. So I gave you some of that, and I believe that's where some of the triggers were happening, because your blood memory was awakened. You know, your spirit, your soul already knows all this, and they're excited. So it brings people to tears and saying, you know, I know this already. And maybe they didn't have a chance to learn any of that from elders or ceremonies and such. So even in our short time, I couldn't share you everything. But it's enough to say that you are a co-creator and you create the world that you want. Create the life that you want, because you have that capability. And the origin stories was basically started with a vision, started with a dream or vision. Is a dream, a vision, and then you bring action to it, you put voice to it, and then you receive. And that's basically, that outlines how the process of creation happened. We have that ability to do that in our lives. So yeah, it was once again, it was a pleasure to share that with your group. But I have been doing this for a while now, and they do come from an ancient past. And there was a time when it was hidden, deliberately hidden, because we had to protect it, had to go underground, because the law says you can't gather, you can't be a medicine person, you can't harvest, you can't gather. But there was a time when you had to trust that it's finally we have the freedom to be out in the open in our ceremonies. Our ceremonies was shared freely with the newcomers until the Indian Act came around. And then that we had to go underground. A lot of communities lost that knowledge because it interrupted intergenerations. Others maintain it. So imagine a sacred dance called the sun dance, done at nighttime when it's mostly supposed to be done when the sun comes up and the sun goes down. But they did it far away from the prying ears of an Indian agent. And they would just put the buffalo robe on the ground and they'll just hit it to make a beat, and everybody be dancing in silence. But they kept that ceremony and memory alive. Here in Winnipeg, there was a lot of great teachers that were reviving the ceremonies, like the Sundance and many others. And when they got together, they talk about it is time to go out in the open and to get our own people. Even though they lost the language, we can't be too strict. We got to invite them. And we were also open with it. For those with good intentions, they can join us. So that was a slow movement to bring back, on the most part, this is our identity. So when you talk about your identity, that there was a time when people just as, I'm Allen Sutherland and I work for the provincial government, and then this is the work I do. Then you sit down. It's always been, even when contact with Europeans during the fur trade, but it's still that way growing up for me. When you meet somebody, you're basically giving them a full background of who you are, where you're from, your name, who raised you, this is your community, this is what you do. Like that takes a little bit of while, but that was the norm. Now we introduce ourselves and our spirit name, especially in a public forum, such as even as a podcast, where you introduce your spirit name and your clan, and and your nationhood, your language group, and then you give your English name, and then you can talk about what you do. That is the norm now, and that is about telling the world that you might have Canada, all throughout North America, you might have created the laws to say you're trying to eradicate our worldview, our identity, our language, but we survived. Now we're proud with our identity. We wear our ribbon shirts to meetings. Here in Winnipeg, I see them everywhere. You can go to Sobeys, you can go to grocery store. They're walking on the streets. They're getting on the bus. They have their ribbon. Women have their ribbon skirts on because they're saying it doesn't have to be a ceremony or a special occasion. And they're saying this is my identity, and I wear it well, and I have a lot of pride doing so. So it's about that identity. We are Canadians. We built this country. It's just that we're not part of their system because that work is incomplete. But we still created the foundation to invite others to come and live here. And we'll not abandon that we're nation builders. I keep saying that to so many people. We created this country and we were reclaiming it. Anyway, that was a quick introduction to your introduction.
I love it. We would normally have our mics on so that we can, kind of go back and forth, but we were noticing some feedback. So we don't want to irritate the people that are watching this. But we do when Alan and I have conversation, it flows into the next, It makes it, I'm just really excited to be in the space and conversation, because when you speak about this from the spiritual perspective, that's what really resonated with me. Because for those of you who don't know the story of Grandmother's Voice or myself, I've always known I was Indigenous, and there was about 24 years ago where I was really doing my healing journey, and I had this spirit show up. And it turned out to be my grandmother, my great grandmother. And so it was her voice always guiding me on my journey. And everything that you spoke about, Alan, I'm actually going to be married to my husband in May 30 years in May. So, he's really watched me on this journey, and he's stayed with me. There have been many times where he thought, I thought if I told him what I was seeing and hearing, that maybe he'd think I was losing my mind, because it wasn't, we didn't talk about it. And I would tell him all of these understandings. And I think that this happened because my dad died quite young. He was 52, and my grandma was 42, and my great grandma was 29, and they all died of suicidal, like a societal. That's what I call it, societal suicide. There was nowhere in society for them. They had no support in society. And it became my passion to want to know more and research, and every time that I got sidetracked or whatever it was, I would have that nudge, and it would be something that would catch my attention and to tell me to get right back on track, or to give me that, that message of hope. To stay focused. But it was like I created this, everything, like when you just said that about, dreaming, seeing, speaking, feeling, receiving it, that's what I've done. And that's what we've done in our community as well, and it's challenging, living this dream, because that's what I saw back then. It was like she played it all out for me. It was like all of these things that I did researching, I could see it. I felt it. And now it's coming to fruition. And it's a long time, because back then I was like, when is this going to happen? Like, I saw that dream. Am I making it up? And I think that that's really my connection with you right now, is that I'm hearing where we are right now in this world. And I saw that. I'm a part of this dream, this coming to fruition that many Indigenous people have spoken about. And we're in it right now. We're in this time that so many people have talked about. So tell me about the is it the seventh fire, eighth fire? We
Well, in my presentations, I try to put quotes of past leaderships. That basically is a quote for the newcomers, but it's also a quote for this generation, and I call it the seventh generation. But even like Crazy Horse says that we are going to be the solution to a hungry and hurtful world. I'm only paraphrasing here. But that's what the hunger is. The hunger is to know thyself. So it's not just Indigenous people themselves, it's all peoples. There is a shift that has recently taken place, and the people are awakening to the fact that this world doesn't define us, but we define what the world could be. We have that power. So with your question about the seventh fire, I have to go like a history, is to go into all those other fires. The seven fire prophecy, the Anishinaabe or Ojibwe seven fire prophecy is online. You can look it up. It's just little snippets of our migration of the Anishinaabe people that were on the coastline, and to stop where there's a shape of a turtle or an island of a turtle. And they basically stayed there for a while, but they keep on moving. It just so happened that the Anishinaabe migration from the coast has gone all the way to the Rocky Mountains, even as far north as Hudson Bay, James Bay, even as south as the Gulf of Mexico. But they would now have so many different spin-offs from the Anishinaabe. So in my case here, I grew up being named Soto, is our connection from migrating from Sault Ste. Marie, and basically the French have named us people of the falls. But this migration that we can talk about went on the north side of Lake Superior, Thunder Bay, into Lake Winnipeg, and then Lake Manitoba, where I'm part of. Then there are those in the south around the Great Lakes, the Chippewa, Ojibwe, and so forth. But there's so many dialects. It's like the Cree, for instance, like Algonquin, and many more. So if you want to talk about the seven fire, it doesn't mention the lighting an eighth fire. It just talks about these events. There are two paths to take. One is the path that you continue on a path of self-destruction, as they say, of greed, of hurt, hate, or you can take the path of enlightenment, a transition that goes beyond just physical body. But it's time that you're not limited by your earthly body, but you're more than that. Your spirit having an earthly experience. So there is a lot I can talk to you about this day and age. But this day and age it doesn't mean we give up on the planet. We are here to look after the earth, to save her. Many young people since the 90s are born into this age, and they're coming into age now. And a lot of them they're named as empaths. They're indigo. We call them rainbow warriors because there's so many colors. And their primary role is to say, help me understand who I am so that I can meet my purpose in saving our Mother Earth, Nimamaki. Because a lot of times they're in a family or in an environment, they don't teach any of that. They're very limited belief systems, and they're confused. And they need to go to the ceremonies. They need to find this elder, and many other elders go to the gatherings to find out that you are more than a human being that's on a marble. You're interconnected. You're one with everything. And then you find your foundation, and now you know what to do. So that's like I said, we only had a few minutes. I couldn't go into all seven fires,
No, I know. And we talk about, well, this is when we were just having these conversations, you had said that you wanted to start a podcast of your own. And this is something that we've always talked about, but being fast forward in the work that I do, it's been, we've have it. It's not quite as professional, we'll say, as others, but that was something that you and I spoke about, and I'm really honored that that we're going to try to do this together, this work together.
Well, I'm grateful you give me an opportunity to see how it's done.
Hmm.
I did a couple already, and
Yeah.
this series every 2 weeks it's unscripted. Basically, open yourself up to any question, and I respond. We're doing
Hmm.
that now, and
Yeah.
to me, that's cool because I have so much to share that I'm thinking I got to have my own podcast so I can just start bringing it down and just put it on YouTube and let people find it.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think that that's the time that we're in, obviously, right? We can reach everyone this way, and share, and not be alone. And that's why we like this opportunity. So I appreciate these conversations, and we know that uh people want to hear, they want to know, they want to know, like you said, they're hungry for more, that we're not alone, that we're allowed to talk about this, because the realities are, for centuries, we were not. Indigenous people were not allowed. This is what was taken from the original people of this land. And so not only can we talk about this now, we are embedding it, right? Implementing it, integrating it, however you want to say it, into our practices, our principles, our conduct, the way that we run our organizations. We can actually really speak to that, and that's what resonated with me, as an entrepreneur, businesswoman. I've just followed my heart. I've done a lot of different work in my lifetime, and this was what was passionate for me, was how to elevate the voices of the people who have not had the same opportunities as other people. And so we're just doing it. There's no rhyme or reason. We're doing this. They want to call it by a grassroots way. That's what we're doing, and it's amazing to see how love and passion can lead something, because that's what Grandmother's Voice and what this platform and what these relationships are all about. So it's really beautiful when you meet other people that are open, their hearts are open, their minds are open, and just knowing that it's time to do this. And no one knows how to do this in a right way. We're just going to do it in the way that's right for us. And for those of you who continue to watch Grandmother's Voice grow, because we have grown and we're making a difference in our communities and the lives of people who watch, because of people like Alan, who say, I want to share my knowledge now. People need to hear this. We know that it's a time for collective healing. And just to say too, I met Alan through Dennis Windigo. Dennis Windigo, is someone we work with right now, who has an amazing healing program. He's also, you've seen him on here. He's always busy in northern communities doing the work. So being able to have the foundation of and the values of the grandmas, and that feminine energy and that nurturing energy, that has been a strong foundation of the work that we do as Grandmother's Voice. And now how having Alan and Dennis work with us and support us as a community of people that want to make change, we are becoming the movement that we've talked about. And so just really grateful for this opportunity, and for people who continue to show up, like Alan, who has so much more. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Because the eclipse just happened and people are still talking about the energy around it. I don't know how you felt after that, after the eclipse, but people were surprised when they said, "You didn't go out and look at it." I was like, I could feel that energy like a week before. I felt like I wanted to hide from it.
Well, that's funny because there is a traditional teaching that says that's the son and the grandmother gets together, and you ain't supposed to watch. So on that day, I was out there contemplating what this is all about. Was feeling the energy. I knew around it what the shift would be, but I did peak. So sorry, Keys. Sorry, Nuka, Miss Moon. I just wanted to say that everybody felt it. They were feeling it from the lunar eclipse. They were feeling it 2 weeks even beforehand. And a lot of people just a week before the eclipse were tired. There are people telling me, "Why am I so tired?" I says, "Well, go lie down. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't fight it. It's a transition." There are those like me who one night just my whole body was in pain, and then after that it was okay. So I was telling people there's nothing to be afraid of here. Everything's always natural. There's a movement going on inside you, your spirit, your body. It's like a cocoon of a butterfly that's in transformation, metamorphosis, I guess they call it. So it's a struggle. And sometimes it's not a struggle for others. Others is just natural and easy, and others are struggling on getting out and to become that butterfly. That's what was happening, at least for North America. I can't speak on rest of the world, but most likely it just happened anyway because that the sun burst. The sun burst. They studied the sun, and it was we're moving into 2025 when we have those solar flares, and it is, and I guess it's officially started. So what you're receiving is a lot of downloads that grandfather son is actually giving us messages and helping us.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, it is the natural transformation to say, hey, look, it started after COVID. It started in 2022 and 2023, but 2024 is when you actually feel it, that there was a shift.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you for that too, because I am very conscious of the what I just walked through. I feel like and I left a lot behind, and even this week, I I feel like I've been walking around asking for forgiveness because I'm just like doing and saying, I'm done with this. I can no longer hold that. I know may have created boundaries. I can't keep up with them anymore. I have to reestablish some things that I've been doing for, a couple of years, and I need to make change. And it reminded me of this book, like I think it was about 20 years ago that I read, and it was called Dream Giver. And it was this I think it was a Christian book or something, a short read. It's been traveling within my girlfriends and friends because it was a short read to move you into that you're doing. You had, like you said, you had this dream, the vision, and so this book was like, go do it, and know that when you go and do it, every time you reach a milestone in your journey, there's going to be something there. There's going to be something there to hold you back, and the closer you get to it, that's going to be stronger. It's going to be a stronger commitment to your journey. And I felt like I'm ready. I was like I moved my cape, like, let's go. I know we're ready to do this now. And it's been a lot of work, and yeah.
And I'll end it by saying, from this transformation is about doing, like you said, it's doing the inner work or shadow work, as sometimes we say, but the inner work is to release all that pain, all that suffering, all those blocks, even all those karma, even in all those past lives, because the only thing you can get out of it is your growth. but don't keep the luggage. Don't keep that heaviness. It's about releasing it all. And the other part is know that you have help. Know that you have spiritual help, and you have spiritual teams, you have spirit guides, you have angels, archangels, you have your ancestors. Make the connection to your ancestors to help guide you and where you're going to go from here. So those are the two advice or recommendations that I have for people, is to start doing the innerward journey. One is to let go of all that other stuff you don't need anymore, and the other is to connect to the universe, to become one with it.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I know that was the weight. I feel like I was that weight I was carrying, protecting myself, all of these things. And I'm a trustworthy person. I'm like, I throw myself out there, this vulnerable, always like, hey, let's, whatever it is, let's do it. But the last couple of months has been in this protection. And then I realized I was moving into maybe some same things. Like I was repeating, I was allowing old things to happen again. And then I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. Like I healed that. Why is that back? And it gave me that opportunity to look at it and again and say, wait, no, I need to move that. I was becoming, I want to say, complacent again and in old routines. And then all of a sudden it was just like, boom, no, time to move forward and try to bring some more newness in. So Yawa for
Jody, it reminded me about my first time to a Sundance, and I'm gonna fly with the eagles. So I get pierced in my muscle and to the rope over the sacred tree, and they're gonna pull me up. So I have these eagle feathers, and I'm gonna go fly among the eagles. But as they were pulling me up, these men are pulling me up. My one foot was still trying to hang on and support me on the ground. And he says, no, you fly, let go. So I had to let go and just trust it. Then I was pulled up more until it broke. But ain't that what it is? Is you just hang on because you don't know what to expect, or you're so used to hanging on to things, but you have to trust.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say that. I wanted to share that one.
Yeah, well, that sounds painful. I'm not gonna lie. However, I understand. I've been hearing a lot about Sundance and those ceremonies. And someone like myself, who before I met the grandmas and anyone in my culture or family, I did a lot of my journeying on my own, not even understanding, not knowing. However, like you said, connected to your ancestors, knowing ceremony is how we live and walk and trust and I, just to kind of finish my thoughts from today is I, for a long time, didn't know how, and thanks to Dennis and you in the last couple of weeks, that, trusting in that I can still stay connected spiritually and do my corporate world, trust that I am living in two worlds, balancing and not blocking my intuition, which is what really has guides me in my work. And that holding on, that was happening a couple of months ago or weeks ago or whatever, was because I knew I was breaking through. I was breaking through as a woman in my understanding that, of my connection to spirit and culture, regardless of if I was raised on the res or not or whatever, because we know there's a lot of lateral competition or whatever we want to call it. I don't even like to put energy in those spaces, but it's real. When you put yourself out there like this, you're putting yourself out there to be, to be exposed, like you're out there. So I'm really have been working on my boundaries and my protection of just being knowing that that I'm protected. The grandmas always reminded me when I would call them crying because I do that a lot. Doing this work can be challenging on the right at the forefront, at the front of the front lines, I guess you could say. And it would be, you're never alone. You have the ancestors. You have your ancestors, and that's enough sometimes, right?
And that pain that you're describing is that accept the pain. Don't have to overwhelm you. It's part of finding your true self. That's what life is. So the more you accept, the more that you're more able to handle any other pain that comes up for the rest of your life. Because if you try to run away from your pain and suffering, it just amplifies. It just shows up again and
I
again.
know. I was just gonna say that. I'm like, oh yeah, I figured that one out. Remember, because I always say like it's like I'm running through a forest. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's how I felt a couple weeks ago. But I'm feeling balanced, and thank you, Yoa Chimagwich, for being here and sharing the space and time and your energy. We feel it. Like that's what's so great about this. We really connect. It feels like I'm in the same room. So, for sharing you.
Well, thank you. Were you going to open up for questions? Is there anything in the chat?
There's people are just saying thank you. Some little short good words. Healing is a process. Miigwech. If anyone's watching and you do have questions, please pop them up here.
Healing is a process. And when we're born to this life, it's not the easiest place to go, but it offers so much growth. And that's what the Creator wanted. He wanted growth through us. So He'll never give us anything that we can't handle ourselves. Every once in a while, though, we need help from others. But that's the healing process.
Awesome. We'll wait one more second. We'll say our see-yas till next time. We're going to go again in 2 more weeks until we get Alan's chat going up somewhere else. This is where we're going to be until we figure out the platform. It's time sometimes, planning. We don't need to plan. Let's just do it. Yeah, Brandy.
I'll just finish off by saying I appreciate the space that you put together for me and for all of us. And I appreciate your comments. I was able to read some of that. And basically, I know it's not going to be enough. I think we're doing maybe 4 or 5 podcasts. We're going to see how far it goes into the summer. I know it's already going into June, I think. But anyway, I just wanted to say it's unscripted. We go by spirit. And really, it's all about your learning. So both Jody and I are here to answer any of your questions.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and message us for next time. Yeah. Anyway, I was just looking through all of the PowerPoint that you share with us on Friday, and like there's just so much amazing stuff that we can talk to Alan about. So I just see here Brandy mentioned about Indigenous laws and treaty before contact. We'll touch on that. I'll make sure that we remember just to kind of highlight that, but you can also message me, Brandy, and then we can talk about that too.
I covered that last Friday.
Yeah, I know.
2 worldviews, 2 different laws and how they see themselves.
Okay, so she's Brandy's saying that she's a law student and her family's in Winnipeg. Woohoo! Big W.
I'm next door to Winnipeg, just outside of it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think we're good. I'm leaving tomorrow morning early with my family. We're going to celebrate a friend's wedding in Dominican Republic. We've been waiting for this for a year, so my kids are excited. Everyone's excited, and yeah, and right, we'll see you. There's some more. I'll share with you, Alan, how you can just jump on this chat later because it stays alive as this post stays on, and if he has time, he can share with you and maybe engage, and we'll help him get his podcast up and running. We're excited for this. Nyawa again for this time.
Akanada no way maganak miigwech. All my relations.
Nyawa.